Welcome, everyone. It's a gloomy day in Luxembourg. Actually, a good day to talk about a topic like this because it involves human touch. We have convened on this webinar today to talk about a phenomena in the financial services industry that's been there for some time. But in the last 2 years, because of COVID, it has picked up quite a lot of momentum. And ironically, this is driven by technology. As we go ahead, you would see why is that ironical. If I move ahead, if we go back to the first industrial revolution and trace our steps back till today, we would see that every innovation that was done in the FinServ world was driven by the three most basic needs of customers: it's convenience, security, and customization, or as I would call it, bespokeness. Depending on where we were in which era, in terms of tech advances, banks continued innovating. Yeah. However, in the last 5 years, through innovations like digital wallets and because of COVID, obviously, in the last 2 years, the curve has gotten very, very steep. As per a survey done in US, it was found that 77% of the respondents didn't want to talk to machines. They wanted to talk to humans rather than machines. This was probably due to the complexity of the product or because customers are more educated and informed about what other industries have to offer in terms of customization. And, they know how it feels to be taken care of. In another research that Gallup did, it was found that the emotional connect quotient in a customer service can actually push up the revenues by 23%. So, and in the last 2 years, because of COVID, how should I say? Let's say distance makes the heart grow fonder. And in this case, social distance made it grow fonder. So today we are here to talk about the need for humanizing the digital banking space. And we have our experts from three firms, these firms that are pioneers and leaders in their space of work. And these three firms also form the value chain that can help banks implement this phenomena, implement solutions and approaches that would humanize the digital banking platforms. So I would go first with Vicky Linton from Temenos. Vicky, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Nimki. Hi, everyone. I'm Vicky Linton. I joined Temenos earlier this year to lead their digital banking division across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I joined after 10 years in Salesforce because one of my Salesforce colleagues, Joaquim de Valenzuela, had also left Salesforce to join Temenos to lead this really exciting part of the Temenos business. I'll tell you a little bit more about that a bit later on.
Great. I'd invite next Javier Pugh from Unblue to take the forum and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank ITSS for inviting me and Unblue to participate in this interesting discussion. So I'm Javier Pugh. I'm the VP of Marketing at Unblue since 4 years now that I moved from Madrid to Switzerland to join this quite interesting project on how we are trying to modernize banking and digital banking. For the ones that don't know us, Unblue is a Swiss-based software company, and our main product is a conversational platform that is just designed only for the financial industry. We have presence in the US, UK, Germany, Eastern Europe, and South of Europe, and customers everywhere. And also thanks to our great partners such as Temenos and ITSS. Our platform is running in more than 160 customers worldwide. And we are helping them to improve digital financial advice and improve their customer satisfaction metrics on their existing digital channels. And I hope that you enjoy our view about this topic today, because I think that it's really interesting. As you were saying, this is like a trend right now, especially after the current situation. So we see a lot of projects moving forward. So I think that is a very hot topic, and I'm happy to participate today in this discussion.
Great. Lastly, actually not last but least, I'd invite Peter Ridlinges from ITSS to take the forum and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Ridlinges. I'm I look after ITSS's business in Africa and Middle East. A key part of our focus and what we do is help banks digitize in partnership with people like Temenos and Unblue. We work very, very closely to take the ideas and the visions of innovative banks across the region and across the world to digitize their platforms and to bring them to life and increase the engagement and satisfaction of their customers. We focus on the services side of things. So once you've decided what you want to achieve, what technologies you want to use, etc., then we put it all together and work with you to bring it to life. And yeah, this is a very exciting topic for me because we're really going to be discussing and addressing the thought processes and what people need to be thinking about when it comes to taking on projects like this.
Great, great. And at the risk of not letting the webinar go with a complete stranger, I would introduce myself. I'm Nimik Gupta. I'm a pre-sales consultant and project manager with ITSS. And at present, I take care of go-to markets for third-party product integrations with Temenos products at ITSS. So here I'll be moderating the webinar with the 3 experts. Today, we would talk about the need for humanizing digital banking. We would also talk about the factors responsible for success and failure when banks undertake such initiatives. We would also talk about the value chain that these 3 companies form to enable this implementation. And lastly, we'll have time for Q&A. So I hope you guys enjoy what we're going to talk about today. Great. So first, the need for humanizing digital banking. Here, I would like to open the forum to all 3 experts. How about Javier and Vicky can talk about why do we think it is so important for this trend to be adapted in the financial services world? Javier, would you like to go first on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we are now living like a new situation for all of us, right? Especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So we have seen all the national lockdowns in countries like Switzerland. I mean, it was like more relaxed than Spain, for example. And one of the key challenges for financial services was to continue to provide financial advice, right? Beyond the regular day-to-day banking that we all do by our e-banking. So the solution that everybody found was like Zoom, Microsoft Teams. So we have seen like a video meeting boom. So there's been more innovation around video meeting solutions in 2 years than in the last 20 years. So it was amazing. And that's natural, right? That banks were like obsessively focused on trying to replace the face-to-face meetings because they were losing business. And also because customers were struggling because the situation was quite serious for all of us. So I mean, financial discussions were important at that time. Okay, so and we all agree that using solutions like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or video meeting solutions for like this particular moment was the right thing to do. And that is coming with good news for everybody, right? So the situation has forced the banks and the consumers to experience more and more these digital solutions. So like having these online interactions with the bank. And so customers are getting used to those. So digital advice now is turning into an option. So if you remember like 3 years ago, if you wanted to discuss your mortgage, of course you have to go. You had to go to your branch. Okay, that was the place. Okay, but in our opinion, this digitization falls a little bit short, right? So banks have to go one step more, okay? Because customers are ready, and then we will see with all the numbers and all the surveys that a lot of like consultant companies are putting together, that customers, they really want to have a digital relationship with the bank, right? So banks, what they have to do is to design their digital banking capabilities to meet the evolving customer preferences, right? Providing what we call high technology, but also high touch when customers are using those platforms that are provided or served with high technology, okay? And then there is like, of course, we hear a lot of people talking about like the full automation of banking, trying to put Netflix or Starbucks or Amazon as the benchmark for customer experience. And that's one part, okay? But when we are talking about banking, I mean, that's not always possible, right? I mean, we were joking the other day, like preparing like this session. It's like we have seen like people struggling. I mean, having problems to sleep before making like a huge financial decision, like buying a house or like getting a mortgage. So it's like you are selling yourself to your bank for the next 30 years, or you want to make sure that you are making the right decision. But I haven't seen people struggling to decide between like a frappuccino and a cafe latte for more than 5 minutes, maybe, right? So that's what we need to. That's what banks need to really consider, is how they want to serve the customers digitally. I mean, the customers are ready for like going through this way or this transition together with their banks, but they have to be able to provide a hybrid experience using high technology to automate the things that could be automated, and also providing like digital advice that is like embedded into your existing channels when it's necessary as well. But we will talk more about this later today.
Great. That's one angle that we go about this, considering that where it should be done, it must be done, where it can be done, and where we can let go of it and keep the human touch there. Okay, that's one angle. Vicky, would you like to take this again?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, Temenos being a partner with Unblue, I agree with everything Javier's just said, and I think those communication lines are critical in delivering a human experience in digital banking. But I did want to take a slightly different angle, I guess, rather than just repeating everything Javier said again. So I was kind of thinking, the question, why is humanization important? Actually, I started thinking about, what does it mean to be human? I don't want to get into some deep existential conversation about, what does it mean to be human? Why are we here? But I guess, for the purposes of this question, we've kind of looked at the communication piece with Javier. And actually, I think another facet of being human is this human tendency to think of ourselves as an individual. We really consider that we have this sense of uniqueness. We all don't think of ourselves as one big homogenous mass. It's really about being an individual. And I know that Netflix and Starbucks, buying a cafe latte is not the emotional commitment of signing up for a mortgage, for example, but data-led organizations like Netflix are absolutely nailing that hyper-personalization and individualization in the experiences. So when you think about Netflix, for example, it's not just about the content that they present to you in your Netflix account when you're logged on. Their recommendation engines are excellent, but it's not just around the algorithms that select the content. It's the way that content is presented to you. So, for example, when they bought out Bridgerton, the little tile that I would see on my account would have a different actor on it. I'd be presented with Jean-René Page because I think he's hot, whereas my husband might be presented with a completely different actor to advertise that same series based upon our preferences and based upon what we know. So we're having these hyper personalized experiences with everyday brands like that. And the thing is, when we as consumers have those great experiences, we bring those expectations with us to our banking lives. Even though the products are not the same, a great experience anywhere in our life sort of sets the tone and the expectation for what we expect everywhere else. So, what might that mean in banking? Well, actually, even before that, the point with Netflix as well, just to finish off on that one, is because they deliver these great experiences, these very personalized experiences, it makes me watch more. I might watch content that I might not otherwise have been interested in. And because it's all online, they can see that, they can track my behavior, they can understand how I'm using their product. Now, they can use that information, that data about my Netflix use to derive insights, which they can then use to enrich and improve upon the experiences they offer. And they build this virtuous circle where they deliver experiences, they get data from the way I use that experience, they glean those insights, and they deliver better experiences on the back of them. So this mutually beneficial virtuous circle could also be applied in banking, I guess. Now, I'm going to take a mortgage example here, and I'm probably going to age myself a little bit, but my first mortgage application ever was on filling in a paper form that I think I might have picked up from a rack in the branch. I just walked in and picked up a mortgage, I think. Now, if the bank is lucky, I maybe phoned them or went to the website and requested an application form that they would have sent out to me. So at least they know that this person, Vicky Linton, is interested in a mortgage. If I did pick it up from the rack, then they have no idea that I have this piece of paper in front of me and I'm interested in a high value product like a mortgage. Now, I can remember filling it in for the first time and they were asking me all sorts of questions. This is the bank I bank with, by the way. This is the bank I had banked with for, over a decade at the time. And I was filling in my name and my address and all of this information that really they already knew about me. It's just an insane misconnect, really. And if at any point in that paper-based process I fell out of that process because I didn't have the information they need or I didn't understand the question, they would have no idea that was the case, that I had dropped out of that application process and that piece of paper would just go in the bin. Now, when we think about what's happened now, we're bringing all of those processes online. And so this already gives us a better experience, because that paper-based process, it was exactly the same for everybody. Everybody would pick up a piece of paper and start filling it in and may or may not get to completion, and the bank would be none the wiser. And even though I was a customer, I'd have to fill out all of that information. And when we bring it online, we already get a better experience, because it can be individualized, it can be pre-populated with the information I have. But what the bank also gets is, if I'm filling out a mortgage application form online, there comes a point in the process where I get stuck and I abandon the process, that kind of abandoned shopping cart thing, the bank know exactly where in the process I have fallen out, what's the field that I have got stuck on and where I've abandoned it. So this gives them really rich insights into how to make that process better for everybody. But for me as an individual, if the bank's smart, they're going to proactively reach out to me and say, hey, it looks like you're stuck at this part in the process. Can we help you? Can we gently guide you back into the funnel to help you achieve what you're trying to do? But also, to help them ultimately to, sign up for that product with me. So I think when we think about humanization, why humanization is important, I think having that ability through digital banking to gather that data about how customers are using products and to use that data to drive insights about how we can make those products better and deliver hyper personalization at scale delivers not only a better customer experience, but it also means that banks can deliver more and better experiences into the customer base.
Right. So if I put what Javier said and what you said together, I would mean Javier was talking more about where the approach of automation and humanization should be balanced, whereas you're talking about wherever you humanize, use hyper-personalization and approaches like that to make it better. So does that make sense? I think it's great. Great. So the second question that I wanted to ask, and Peter, I would send that to your way, is in your view, banks have already started doing this for quite some time. So how would you feel about the success versus the failure factors in this space? Why would banks succeed and why would banks fail? Why do they fail?
Very, very good question, Nimik. I think, in measuring anything, you need to become very, very clear about what your success criteria is, right? When you talk about something like humanizing banking, I think it's very important to acknowledge that we're not dealing with a destination, but we're dealing with an ongoing journey, just like in any relationship, right? So, in essence, what the big picture objective is here is to be able to mimic some form of a real relationship, a real relationship versus a digital relationship. And so the idea is to see it like that. So if I'm a bank and I want to engage my customer, I have a relationship with my customer, and there's hundreds of engagements and touch points, and each and every one of them becomes part of that journey in building that relationship. And some interactions will increase the currency of that relationship, and other interactions will take away or become an obstacle in the relationship. So when we talk about measuring the success or failures, I mean, if we look at it at a very big picture level, I suppose we're succeeding when we have more good interactions than bad interactions. Then if we zoom in and we start looking at the specific interactions, then we can look at each one of them in their own merit. And then we can even take it further and go, okay, so I've created a good interaction here, but how do I make it better? How do I make it more personal, right? It's like I take my wife out for date night, right? And we have a great evening. But next time I go, okay, well, how do I build on that? How do I make it better, or don't I? In other words, is this good enough, or are my attempts to try and make it more better actually just not going to work for her because she quite likes to just go to a quiet place and have some good one-on-one time. So I think the crux of the understanding success and failure is obviously by looking at the feedback of the customer, right? And so to pick up on what Vicky was saying is that when you have the data and you know how customers are responding, where processes are stopping, where people are dropping off, where people are becoming uncomfortable, or simply where they're just giving you feedback to say that you're not adding value to me here, you're not helping me, right? Is to be able to take that and tweak it and take it forward. And this is where the conversation becomes really, really interesting, because in the past, when we used to look at these kinds of things, we used to look at them from the perspective of, I need to go buy some product or some piece of software that's got everything pre-configured and everything set up that is going to handle the process end to end. And you need to tell me what the best practice is, and we sort of hard code and fix this process, and it stays rigid like that. And so the idea of changing that or tweaking that or removing some of the friction then became quite a big decision and quite a big process, right? And no one can invest in a relationship or keep building in a relationship if every time you want to do something to improve it, you have to go back to the beginning or back to the starting blocks. So when we talk about the successes and failures that we've seen in the market, biggest failures, simply people choosing the wrong technology. Backing a strategy or a direction and tooling that doesn't allow them to evolve and change and adapt. And in a relational way, meaning very quickly, very real time, being able to respond to customer needs and customer requirements, and more importantly, changing customer needs and customer requirements. Because what customers needed pre-pandemic to today is a significant change in a very short space of time. Tomorrow, something new might come up in your market or in your region or in your country, and all of a sudden your customers need something different. So the ability to respond really quickly and engage, I think, is a large part of what it means to actually humanize banking, because a large part of being human is being able to have your needs met and to be able to respond to meet other people's needs. So successes is really the success stories we've seen is obviously in the obvious measurables, when somebody rolls out something and you have onboarded hundreds and thousands of new customers, or great uptakes in new products, etc., or great improvement in customer satisfaction. Thing is that those are successes and failures for particularly for banks, regardless of what we're talking about, because that's the bottom line. But if we're talking about humanizing, I think that the real measure is, and what we need to be focusing on is that, am I building my relationship with my client consistently? It's not about necessarily getting everything right, but it's about having a continuous improvement in touch points.
Okay, so as I understand that you're talking about putting the strategy by keeping the customer in the center, that's the first part. And once you have that right, when you implement it, it is extremely important that you get the right tech and then you implement it properly. And on the business part, because the needs keep changing, the bank should be able to anticipate what the customer wants more and keep, lack of better word, one up it. So, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, if I can give you an example quickly, if you look at an origination journey, right? Let's just use a mortgage again, right? You have your process that you're following, and now you find there's a hiccup or a problem. And you come up with an idea or a way to immediately interject or streamline that process or solve that problem. You should be able to do it quickly.
Got it. Great. So I would move to the next part of our webinar now. Thanks. Let me share my screen again. So moving on to that, I would like to introduce the concept of the value chain, where Temenos and ITSS and Unblue play their parts in ensuring that banks get whatever they need to humanize their space. So it's not like a boilerplate solution for all the banks that we talk to. There are neobanks, challenger banks, big banks, small banks, SME, microfinance. So each bank has different needs. The concept of value chain comes from Michael Porter, and the central idea is to identify what each player, each node of the value chain creates as value. Yeah. So I would like to invite Javier to talk about Unblue's role in the value chain, and how would Unblue create value here?
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are going to talk about how we believe that banks should humanize digital financial advice. So if we move on to the next slide. So, I mean, I think that humanizing digital banking starts with this conversational banking trend, right? That, I mean, I'm sure that you are all familiar with. So, I mean, we are coming from the online banking, mobile banking, and now conversational banking, that at the end is like trying to superpower your digital channel with conversational capabilities. But if I'm asking you, what do you understand by conversational banking? If you move on to the next slide, that's what you would tell me. It's like chatbots, right? So it's AI, how you can deliver automated experiences to your customers. So you can really, as a customer, get financial advice using artificial intelligence mechanism, right? Because banks at the end of the day, they are trying to optimize, and they are trying also to make everything very convenient for their customers. And we all agree that if you want to pay your rent, you don't want to go to the branch anymore. You want to do it using your e-banking portal, your mobile app, a chatbot, doesn't mind. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is to do it fast, and it's part of a daily stuff that you have to do as part of getting things done. And that's what you have to do, okay? But in this picture, we in Unblue, we believe that there is something that is missing, okay? Because how we define a conversation is whether it's initiated by a human or a virtual assistant, is an entity that is going to help you to get to know your customer and guide them through important financial decisions, right? And I think that this, what we say, is what our customers or what customers or banking customers are saying, right? So if we move to the next slide, we see that, I mean, what customer requires at the moment are digital banking, but with a human touch. So of course, and Vicky will explain it later, but of course you have to invest into your self-service capabilities, your platforms, your portals, your websites. You have to personalize your offer. You have to use big data so that you can really, I mean, your e-banking, Vicky's e-banking application is completely different to my banking application because the information that the bank has about us is completely different, right? But at the end of the day, if we move on to the next slide, we will see that there are some products where automation is not enough. Example, so you have some savings sitting in your account, and then you get your robo-advisor platform is telling you have to invest 100,000 in Bitcoin because it's great. Okay, I mean, if you are not an eager investor, I mean, what you are going to need is to talk to an advisor. So, and if you have the possibility to talk to an advisor right there, or just schedule a meeting with an advisor exactly where you are in your e-banking application, that makes your life much more convenient, and you are really delivering value. So what at the end of the day, if we move to the next slide, we will see that the experience that you should be providing is a hybrid experience. So in one part, you have like the digitization, which is, intuitive interfaces, on-demand, remote accessibility, so that is going with you everywhere. And then it's like the humanization, where you have to build, is the opportunity that you have for like building emotional connections, building on trust, and have these one-to-one conversations that at the end of the day are going to create like brand advocates. Okay, so everybody's going to tell, okay, work with this bank because they have like the greatest digital tools, but also when you need to talk to someone, they are available for you. You can talk to them when you need them. Okay, so in the end, what you have to be able to do is to create like a hybrid customer experience, a hybrid customer experience where you blend the two worlds. If we move next. So, and how we suggest, because in the end is what Peter was saying, is like you have to test. You have to test it. You need to have like a flexible platform that is allowing you to not start from scratch every time that you find out that what you thought was wrong or you made the wrong assumption, right? So that you need to have like a system or like a technology stack that allows you to really go together with your customers and try things out, right? So here we have our, how we normally explain it is how you can balance automation and human advice. So in one side, you have like the impact that the financial decision might have in customers' life. And in the other, at the bottom, we have like the complexity, right? And at the end of the day, you have to put the task into one of those, right? If you go into the blue part, you think about like the parts that you can really automate, right? So for example, online research. We see now a lot of people doing online research and you have to create content for them, right? So I have, my brother-in-law is much younger than I, and they learn by themselves. So things that, I would talk to an advisor to try to understand. They do a lot of online research before they make a financial decision, for example. So you have also to categorize the kind of customers that you have. Then you have like some customers where like digital only tool self-service are perfectly fine. And that's what you have to offer to them because you already know that. So you don't have to have your advisor there for them. But you have like customers, for example, like me, that if you are making me a proposal that is quite risky, for example, you know that I'm risk adverse, and then you have to give me the possibility to connect with my advisor right away. So you can convert this opportunity into a deal for you, right? So that's why I think that like analyzing data and trying different customer journeys depending on the information that you have from your customers is important. But at the end of the day, what you have like to consider is like the complexity and the impact and also the profile of your customer. And based on that, you have to offer like one experience or the other. We have like companies like putting like the chat bubble everywhere and like waiting for the best to happen. But that is not helping. So we in Amblue, we have like the chat icon, of course, but we have like something that is called embeddable UI, for example. So depending on your journey, the journey that you are trying to define, then we allow banks to say, okay, we want to offer here the human relationship. So you can embed that experience within a form or within like a particular process that you are building for your customer. And that's pretty cool for like UX designers, because if you tell them that the only thing that they can do is to put like the launcher button or like the chat icon on the homepage, they typically don't like it very much because they like to test stuff and see what works and what doesn't. And if we move to the next slide. So in the end, it's like, humanizing digital banking is about like people, dream, trust, and loyalty. Okay, so people is because at the end you have like to put like the people at the core of your digital strategy. So at the end, we can provide technology. So you can provide only technology, and then you will be competing with like Amazon and other vendors out there. But then you have like a lot of like advisors already working for you with you as a bank. and then you have like to give them the tools so they can digitally advise customers, right? So they can really understand the financial dreams of their customers and partner with them so they can achieve them. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you don't have to push for products, I guess, not anymore at least. So you have to be able to understand what your customers want to achieve. And it's only possible if you analyze the data, but also if you converse and try to understand the needs of your customers. And you now have to do it digitally. And if you do that, then you are gonna create trust. And of course, you are gonna create like loyal customers that would talk very nicely about you. So that means that you eventually would get like more customers, right, from their network. So at the end of the day, I mean, humanizing digital banking is about people. I mean, it's in the world. It's how you use your existing channels so that you can provide like a good digital financial advice, not building something new, using the existing technology that is there that you have like to improve and you have like to automate as much as you can for the tasks that you think are not adding any value, but like bringing the human relationship when you think it makes sense. And if we move. Okay, so picking on the last on the trust part. So at the end, so if you really want to differentiate your offering, so what we believe that banks should be doing is to equip the advisors and agents with the right tools so they can really work with their customers online. Allow for an omni-channel experience, also with like automation, technology, and provide relevant contextual financial advice, because that's how you would be able to provide like a winning end user experience that at the end of the day is like more business for you. So, and how you do that, as we see it in the next slide, is with like a technology that is flexible. And I think that, Peter, I mean, you were talking about like something that for me is really important, that is like the platform idea. If we go to the, so is the platform idea. At the end, I mean, you have like your agents, your relationship managers, and your bots, and those are like teams, okay, of like people serving your customers. And on the other side, you have like your customers and your partners, right? And for them, I mean, how they interact with you are via the channels and the dialogue and collaboration capabilities that you can build on top of those channels. These channels, like, for example, e-banking and customer portal, mobile apps that should be connected with the core system is like, I mean, with Infinity, Temenos, or like, I mean, it's a great solution. But then on top of that, I mean, you can build like a layer of like communication capabilities and also collaboration capabilities that you can really discuss opportunities with your customers. And in the back end, I mean, that's why we think, or how we, this is the reason why we designed the platform as a platform, right? That is open, for example, because you should be able to connect. I mean, we cannot deliver as Blue every single technology under the sun, right? But we want to be able to accommodate other technologies that are gonna, and that you can hook or connect into the core platform. So people using one single interface, for example, will be able to have different kind of experience. So I'm thinking about, like, for example, chatbots is one example. So how we believe chatbots should work. At the end, chatbots, how we see them is like teams with some capabilities, for example, with some skills. So you might be able to have like different chatbots from different companies, because, I mean, chatbot A is very good for doing this, chatbot B is very good for doing that. But I mean, for the end customer, they don't care. I mean, who is the vendor that is providing that chatbot? They want to have like a seamless experience. So they want to have like one unique interface that they can go talk to the bank and get the things done. Okay. And also that flexibility would allow banks as well to test out different journeys. So for journey A, you can say, okay, so the A/B testing, for example, journey A, I want to have like a chatbot here doing that, or like I want to qualify the leads in a different way, for example, right? So you can test different customer journeys and you can adjust your journey to the one that is performing the best for you. And that's why, I mean, we think that having like a flexible technology supporting you is key, so you can achieve your goals as a bank, especially in a very competitive marketplace like the one today, where you have like fintech and also big tech companies trying to provide now financial services. And you have to be, I mean, we all know that traditional banks, they come with like the legacy in the back, but there's like many ways that you can modernize the front end and then modernize the back end in like step by step. And I think that, I mean, the only thing that cares to the end customers right now is the front end, not the back end. So I think that banks should be able to provide like a good front end experience sooner rather than later. And that's a way of like showing to the customers as well that they are like taking care of them. And if we go into the last slide, so I'm going to give you some examples of some KPIs that our customers are doing right now. So when we talk about humanizing banking, we talk about like also having more meetings, having more customer conversations, right? So we have seen in one of our big customers that they are able to generate more than like between 20 and 30% more meetings, also because people, I mean, are more willing to have like meetings online rather than going to the branch. That's normal. But they also close between 15 to 20% more deals, and the meetings are a little bit shorter. That means that they can have more meetings, and that without taking into consideration the commute time. And also the good thing is like this is not impacting the customer satisfaction, the customer experience, because we see that between 90-95% of customers are happy, and like most of them are happy to continue to have remote advice even when they can go back to the branches. Okay, and this is in the scenario where we are using like this kind of technology for like trying to increase sales. But you can also use this technology to try to reduce the support costs, right? Because that's something that you have to do as a bank, so you cannot avoid it. I mean, you have to pay for it because it's not a revenue stream, but we are helping them as well.
If I may quickly button there, it's really cool that you talked about the ecosystem and then how it connects to Temenos, because Temenos, being a product company, would also bring in the market intelligence to banks, and the operations part is where I think ITSS as an implementer can help as well, right? So I really like this slide because it shows the entire ecosystem. How about we hear from Vicky about how can Temenos really plug in here and push that part? Vicky, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks, Nimki. I realized I missed a trick when we did the intros. I didn't really say anything about Temenos or who Temenos are or what they do. So just
very well known, Vicky.
So very briefly, Temenos are the world's largest banking company. And really they're most well known for their core banking system, Transact. But a few years ago, they released the new digital banking platform, which is Temenos Infinity, and that's part of the Temenos company that I work for. Now, Temenos Infinity is still relatively unknown, I guess, compared to its big brother Transact. So what is it? So I'm going to flick through just a few slides really, really quickly, Nimki, to keep on time. But basically, so Temenos Infinity is a digital banking solution focused on customer experience. So you can think about, the mobile banking apps that most people have on their phones nowadays, internet banking. So banking, Temenos Infinity, we make that digital banking possible for 1.2 billion people globally. So we're slightly different to Unblue in that we're really looking at that end-to-end funnel of marketing and upselling to your customers, presenting them with the right product at the right time on the right channel, and then taking them all the way through the acquisition and onboarding of that product. So we do the originations all through the platform. And then we do the servicing as well to manage the customer retention. And we use all of that information that we gather through that onboarding and acquisition and servicing and customer retention to identify upsell opportunities and and generate that virtuous circle again. And we could, although we partner, it's decoupled from Transact, the core banking system. So obviously we have a native integration capability with Transact, but we can also plug into any commercially available core banking systems, or, you know, kind of legacy homegrown core banking systems within the banks. So why is this important? So if we scroll through to the next slide, I just want to quickly highlight a couple of results from our global survey, which was carried out this year. Now, what astounded me in this is that this year, in a global pandemic, 42% of customers said they had still gone into a branch to carry out a transaction. So I was astounded. I thought it would be much lower than that. But on the next slide, we'll see that actually of those people who went into the branch, 3 in 5, a massive majority, said it was because they needed to rather than they wanted to. And I think we combine this with the findings, it's very similar findings to Javier and Blue. Really, the optimum experience for a customer is a blend. We want to be able to use the digital banking platform to put as much as we can online, make it digital. We heard about why that was important earlier. Very personalized, very digital. We can learn from that. But to also be able to blend that with human interactions when needed. Now, interestingly, that's what is rated as giving the best experience. And if we look at the next slide, we'll see that the gap between the experience and the product has closed. Traditionally, the experience, people rated the product, the interest rate, the capabilities of the product as the most important reason why they would choose a product. But you'll see that better mobile online access and that experience has caught up now. So people rate the experience as important as the product itself. Okay. So they're equal now, and I would be surprised if we don't see them surpass in next year's survey. So we know that is important. So what does a good experience mean? Well, let's look at the next slide and we'll see what people rated as most important in terms of a good experience. Now, anyone who has ever read The Effortless Experience will know that the ease of doing business with a brand is a greater predictor of their loyalty than the CSAT scores. So we know that the ease of doing business is very important. And we're still seeing that here, that's playing out. So 43% of respondents are saying they want easier ways to interact with the bank. But what's really interesting is an equal number of people are saying that they want banking services that will positively impact their lives, accurate recommendations for budgeting and savings, intelligent solutions to help them reach their life goals. Okay, so this is this comes back to that kind of uniqueness or individualization that we talked about earlier. So if we think about that mortgage example we talked about, did I want to take out a mortgage? No, of course not. I didn't even know, I didn't know anything about mortgages. I wanted to buy a home. And so, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes with buying a home. I had to navigate, solicitors and moving companies and all of these things that happen over and over and over again when somebody buys a home. But for me, it was the first time doing that. So I think there's a real opportunity for banks to start thinking about what's the job to be done for a customer when they're buying one of these high value products, and how can we make it easier for them? And that might mean curating services that come from a whole bunch of players and becoming more of a kind of experience ecosystem. Now, I'm not going to talk about that today because that's probably a subject for a whole other webinar. But even in the areas of the experience that the banks have full control over, in order to deliver that hyper-personalization we talked about earlier that's so important, the banks really need to put the customer at the center of everything they're doing. They need to have that joined up picture of the customer across the different products, across the different lines of business, and they need to then use that joined up picture of that customer to build a really rich picture, really rich data picture of that customer in order to drive insights, to drive those hyper-personalized experiences. Now, once we have that joined up view, we can start to use all these new technologies that you were talking about in the fourth industrial revolution, Nimki. We can start to use all that new technologies to drive predictive modeling about this customer, for example. Now, in a recent study that Temenos carried out with the EIU, 81% of the respondents said that unlocking value from AI is going to be the key differentiator between winning and losing banks in the future. So, what might that look like in the mortgage example? I keep coming back to it because I think it's a nice way to, expand. Now, when I took out my mortgage, as I said, it was paper. It was a bit of a rubbish experience. But I at least knew I wanted a mortgage. But actually, I could have taken out a mortgage ages before and bought a house ages before, but I just didn't know that I was ready. So the bank knew where I lived. They knew the kind of house I live in because they've got my address. They know how much that house would have been worth because they sell houses. They knew how much a mortgage on that property would cost because they sell mortgages. They also knew how much I was paying in rent because that money was going out of my bank account every month. So they've got all these really important and useful insights about me. And actually, if they'd have had the capability to crunch the numbers at the time, they would have been able to see that actually, Vicky, Linton, you could save money if you were to buy a house now, because the amount you would pay for a mortgage for the property like you're in is less than the amount you're paying on rent. So they're, moving forward in the future, banks can use that kind of insight to deliver hyper personalized messaging to customers with an offer for a mortgage discussion, for example. Hey, did you know you could save money if you thought about buying rather than renting? So we're not just helping customers when they come out to us. We're actually proactively reaching out with them on ways we can make their life better, help them save money and reach their life goals faster, for example. Now, my concern around, we talked about how rapidly digital capabilities have been delivered through the pandemic. People had to pivot so quickly. And my concern is that people are just taking kind of suboptimal old processes and whacking them online just to get something up really quickly, rather than taking this opportunity to really think about how do we put the customer at the center of these journeys. And so I feel like moving forward, we might see a period of reevaluation where banks go back and look at what they did quickly to just to survive, and think about how can we maybe re-engineer some of that now for scale and customer centricity, so that the banks can really add value and start helping customers really achieve their goals. So obviously there are a lot of challenges around that, and Peter, I think you're going to tell us about some of the approaches that banks can take to bring that to life and to start really helping customers.
I don't need to interrupt, Peter. Take it away.
Great, excellent, super. Okay, let me just move on to the next slide.
Yes.
Good. So yes, being an implementation partner, I always like to say that we get involved where the rubber hits the road, where we take all the ideas and the plans and we need to bring them to life. And so when we look at the thought processes that a bank, or the type of thinking that a bank can engage when looking at humanizing digital banking, or even just digitizing, you can broadly, I think, break the thought processes into two categories. The one is what I would refer to as a product-based approach, which basically has an objective of how do I get you to buy my product? How do I increase my mortgage sales? How do I get more people to sign up for check accounts? How do I issue more personal loans? Basically, how do I increase my value of my customer? And I think that'll always be the case. But when it comes to digital engagements, when we come to it with that kind of thinking, really what we're saying is, Vicky, as to what you were mentioning earlier, is that we're just taking a traditional process or a standard age-old process, and we're putting it online. So you were talking about going into the bank and filling out your mortgage application form. I remember working in a bank, and we were very innovative because we filled out the forms for the customers. So that was an iteration of improvement, right? And so what we see is a lot of people looking at their traditional products and things, and we're putting them online. And so innovation is making the product available across more channels, right? Or maybe auto-filling half of the application and only asking for the information that we don't have, etc., etc. The thing is that we can make that more convenient. Those are good interactions, but there's nothing, I almost want to say mind-blowing, but when we talk about banking, I think that's a bit of an overstatement. I don't think anyone is going to be providing anything mind-blowing, but not necessarily human, just transactional. Right. And then if we come to the other side of thinking, or type of thinking, and we start looking at technology-based experiences, right? That really is fundamentally the approach of rethinking everything and putting the customer in the center, right? And again, it's the same anecdotal approach of, am I selling a mortgage or am I helping somebody buy a home? If I'm helping somebody buy a home, the amount of opportunities I have to add value and engage is significantly different to selling a mortgage, right? Selling a mortgage has got to do with an application process. Buying a home is helping somebody achieve something that has meaning to them and is a key part of their life. So when we start looking at this creating technology-enabled experience approach, we're really starting to ask the question as the bank is to say that, how do I become a bigger part of my customer's life? Rather than how do I get my client to simply just adopt more of what I have? When we start thinking about how do I become more of my client's a bigger part of my customer's life, they automatically adopt more product. And that just happens to be a result of the process instead of the process. So I think banks are becoming quite clear about, we need to rethink things. We need to look at things. Everybody wants to be the Uber of banking, or the Airbnb of banking, and rethink everything. And I think that's very exciting. It's very necessary. It's very right. But we understand that everybody's not there. And you're not going to change or revolutionize your bank overnight. So it's very important when it comes to the implementation of these kinds of things is that we take the right approach, right? In other words, that you select the right technologies that give you the flexibility to be able to take what you have, put it online, right? Make it accessible across all of these channels. Then start iterating, start improving it, start making it better, but then also have the ability to be able to completely rethink your approach without needing to change your technology, without needing to start from scratch. And this is where I believe our partnerships, right, become so powerful, because there is no one player, there is no one party that can offer a bank the whole end-to-end without needing to talk to somebody else. So I think what you're seeing, what we're going to see more and more in the future is collaborations between vendors and service providers to be able to offer an end-to-end solution, but in a collaborative approach where we all add the value that we can add best to that ecosystem. Nimik, if you could just move to the next slide. Right, so how much time have I got left?
I think 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then if we have to leave it up for Q&A, then 5 minutes. Perfect.
Okay, great. So if we look at these different thought processes, I mean, I can go into lots of examples. I think let's just stick with the Amazon Echo one quickly. If we're taking our traditional banking online, right, what we're doing is we're just doing the transactions the way we used to do them, but via digital. When we're starting to look for creating technology-enabled experiences, we really are changing the journey. But when we're changing the journey, it becomes a lot more complex, right? So if I'm asking Alexa, what is my balance for my current account, right? That's a fairly simple thing for Alexa to answer, because Alexa has got access to my banking system, is taking a voice command, and is doing something that pretty much any other channel in your banking application, in your banking offering does, right? It fetches, checks your balance, and it feeds it back to you, right? That's a very simple, straightforward interaction, right? So now let's say we come to something more complex, right? So I say to Alexa, please forward my shopping list to my phone, right? So Alexa, that's a standard functionality that Alexa does. But where does my banking come in here, right? What if Alexa could tell me, hey, Peter, last time you went shopping and your shopping list looks similar to this, you spent $200. You only have $150 in your account, right? So what are we going to do? Are we going to cut the shopping list, or are you going to ask for a $100 loan until payday, or like how are we going to manage this? Right now, in the back end, for that to happen, right, there's several complex processes. Or several simple processes that become a complex thing to navigate with lots of ifs and buts to be able to deliver that, right? So now to deploy the solution is more complex, because you've got to have potentially a few different systems talking to each other, some AI technology, etc., making some decisions, giving some feedback, and feeding that back. So that changes the thought process that the bank has to go into with regards to who am I going to use, how are we going to approach this, how are we going to put this together. So what we're able to do is we're able to say, okay, let's start with the simple transactions. We have the ecosystem through our partners and the technologies to be able to introduce more and more complexity in the background to make it simpler in the front, to make it easier for your customer to interact with you, and for you to play that role of being part of their life through technology-enabled experiences, as opposed to just pushing and selling products. And if we can just go on to the next slide. Thanks. So our approach to engaging any bank that wants to address this is first and foremost to look at what you currently have in place, and then to see, well, what is it that you want to achieve? What is the delta in that? And does what you have really have the flexibility to lend itself to all those things that we spoke about earlier, like changing needs of customers, updating workflows and processes quickly and easily, and to hyper-personalize journeys and experience for your customers. So the first step is for us really to make decisions around that and put that in play. From there on, it really is as fast or as slow as what you as a bank want to introduce these engagements to your customers and how you want to approach things. We have the ability to sort of take a big bang approach to some of these projects and scope everything, put everything together, put it out there. Nobody really does that anymore. Firstly, it's too expensive. It takes too long. By the time you go live with what you thought your customers needed, they already need something else. So it's really, really important to be able to be quick on your deployment and take things forward. So the simplest approach here is really being able to look at what you're currently offering your customers. Let's put the right tech in, offering what you're already offering them, perhaps plus oneing a few things here and there where it's simple, easy, quick wins without increasing the cost and the timeline. But basically, let's call it, we need to get you ready to humanize your digital banking, right? That's step one. Then step two is really a lifelong journey of constantly improving, tweaking, deploying new features, bringing in all these other complexities in the background, as I mentioned earlier, in order to be able to offer more and more of these digitally enabled experiences or life experiences for your customers. So at a very practical level, typically we would start off by engaging with some project generally structured around a minimal viable product to get you live, to get you on board. And then we're really equipped to engage with you to not just run that operation for you technically in the background, but also to continuously deploy and add on those features. So we're really in a position to be able to, as a consortium, sit down with you as a bank and look at your roadmap for now, plot something out, and get the right traction with regards to moving it forward. Do I have another slide?
Come on.
Yes. So again, the tailor-made approach, regardless of your thinking and where you're at, really comes down to a few key things, right? When we're talking about the productized approach and that level of thinking, right, your number one driver is going to be time to market. Because what I can tell you is, as a bank, if you're still in the thought process of how do I digitize, how do I just make what I have available online, right? You're not differentiating. You're not taking market share, right? You're not industry leading, right? You're fighting for survival. And so this needs to happen as cost effectively and as quickly as possible to simply keep you in the game, right? And the reality is, if you're going to be spending money on this and you're going to be investing, you better be doing it in the right places so that you can then leverage that spend in technology to be able to start entering the humanizing space and making the digital banking experience a lot more interesting and a lot more meaningful for your customers.
I could almost hear the pains of a sales director and program director in your oration, Peter. Great. So if I try to put this the three pieces together of the value chain, I understand that Temenos specializes in the market intelligence and the market leadership when it comes to products and, how should I say, forward-looking way of looking at any trend, and it's true for humanization as well. Unblue has brought this really interesting concept of conversational banking that fits right into the gamut of Temenos and obviously other platforms, but it's almost like this front runner when it comes to implementing new trends there right now. And ITSS, in the end, is obviously working with both these firms to ensure that what is being implemented is implemented seamlessly. And I will, for the audience, I will share the contacts of the three experts in the end. And for any other information, you can directly reach out to them. I have about 7 to 8 questions from the audience. I will pick maybe just a few. And I'm going to stick to this slide for a bit while I sort out the questions. Great. So the first question, Peter, is for you, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Yeah, that's for you, Peter. So since I think this came up because we were talking about the faster go-to-market driver here. So how would ITSS enable a challenger bank or a neobank to kickstart the journey to be a bank? Does this humanization part fit in there? And if yes, how?
Absolutely, right. To your last question, does the humanization part form part of that? Absolutely. If you're a new entrant to the market, there's a lot of things that you don't have that your competitors that have been in the market for a long time that they do have, right? You don't have a track record, you haven't got the trust, and you also don't have the legacy investments in all the infrastructure and all the other challenges that come with it, right? So the key question any of these banks are going to have to answer is, why is somebody going to become my customer? Why are they going to bank with me? What am I going to offer? Right? And what I can tell you is that if you're offering something that is not centered around what we would call humanized digital banking, right, your offer is going to be meaningless and will get lost very, very quickly. So how do we help customers as ITSS? Well, we play a part in that. Truthfully, as ITSS, we can't help customers on our own. That's why we have partners like Temenos and Unblue, etc., because there's an ecosystem of different parties that add different value in being able to do that. So in simple terms, how we help customers is by engaging them and by educating them, by helping them understand what's available out there, what the technologies can do, and ultimately what it takes to leverage that. And so as ITSS, what we do is we try and bridge the gap between your idea and making that a reality by leveraging all the possibilities within the technology that the customer decides to go with.
Okay. And as I would know, because I'm from ITSS, we do have experience with that. Just to pitching in there. Great. One question for Vicky. This one's from the audience. Self-service opportunities based on trust and efficiency is a sine qua non for branchless banking. How is Temenos trying to enable this experience across user onboarding, loan processing, and customer engagement using AI? Very specific.
Okay, yes. Okay, so obviously, I know I talked about AI when we talked about those processes, the mortgage origination processes. And I think for me, the real value for that AI comes when you mine into the data from the core banking system. So taking that transactional information about a customer and marrying it with the experiential information about a customer through the onboarding and origination processes. Now, there was an interesting word there around trust. Now, I think AI has got a really bad rep in financial services. We've all heard about the sexist credit card from Apple. And, there's this worry, concern, I guess, that the algorithms that are being used in AI are these black boxes and we don't know why. And we all have a responsibility to make sure that financial products are accessible to everybody, that they're not delivered on a discriminatory basis. So Temenos do have an AI capability baked throughout their platform, but it's actually our internal name for it, and how we sell it as well is XAI, and the X stands for explainable. So everything that's Temenos do with AI in their products through the marketing offers that we might propose to a customer, it's all delivered through this explainable AI model. So anything we do that would make recommendations, that would do anything to do with the financial products, is all explainable. So I think that's going to be really key for customers if they're going to put trust into these AI-enabled processes that genuinely affect their lives at the most profound levels. They need to be able to understand what they're signing up for in terms of the data that banks will use, but B, understand how that data is used from a kind of modeling and algorithm perspective. And we allow banks to see all of the algorithms and crunching that has been done through any recommendations through our AI platform, and they could even publish that to their customers if they wanted to as well. So customers can understand why they're receiving a certain recommendation and what the data is and how that's been arrived at. I think that's key. I think if people are moving into this future where robots and AI are making decisions for us, they want to understand, how that's been arrived at. So yeah, really good question.
Right. And that directly plays into what I have to ask Javier. There's one question, and I think that's because of the excitement of having bots. How does an Unblue customer start using the platform? How much time does it take for them to get accustomed to it?
So I think that, our customers, what they do is to start small and grow, and that relates very well with what Peter was saying before. So you need to make those communication and collaboration channels available somewhere, and you have to start small and grow, test different customer journeys, and then test out different functionalities and different things that you can make available for your customer. So in honor of time, because I know that we are running out of time right now, so I can expand on my answer. If this person wants to reach out to me by email, happy to give him or her a couple of examples of some of our customers.
Yeah, great. One thing I would like to say on behalf of all the three companies, because we worked closely over the last few days, whatever has been talked about in this webinar, there are live examples, there are use cases. So please do reach out to the experts. This webinar will be available after the webinar ends as well on the websites. and the links can go to all the audience as well. Great. So thank you for your time, Peter, Vicky, and Javier. It was really fun talking about this topic. Hope you had fun too.
Thank you very much.
You did. Thank you for having us.
Great.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.